The desert winds screamed like ghosts outside the old trade post. It was made of rusted metal, patched walls, and thick tarps flapping in the hot air. Inside, it smelled like smoke, sweat, and desperation. Traders moved like shadows, whispering. Deals no one wanted to hear out loud. Weapons, tech scraps. Slaves, everything had a price here. Jace stepped through the entrance, his boots kicking up dry dust. He was human, tall and rough-looking. With a tired face and a sharp gaze, he wore scavenger gear-thick jacket, goggles pushed up on his forehead, and a plasma pistol at his hip. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here for parts, maybe a power cell or two if the price was right. He walked past cages of strange animals, crates of illegal weapons, and a shelf of alien food that looked like dried worms. The trader behind the counter nodded at him. A short, lizard-like creature with a golden tooth. Need something. Human. The trader hissed. Tech scraps. Maybe something pre-Federation. Jace answered, his voice dry, down the aisle to the right. The trader said, pointing with a claw. Or, if you want something warm, check the cages. Jace didn't respond, just turned and walked where the trader had pointed. He wasn't here for warm bodies, not like the others, but as he turned the corner, something stopped him. A sound, soft and weak, like a whisper or a whimper. He looked left-hand, saw her. She was in a cage in the far corner, curled up on the cold metal floor. Her skin was soft, violet, glowing faintly under the dim light. She wore rags, barely clothes, and her hair was long, dark, and tangled. Her face was bruised, her lips dry, eyes dull but wide when she noticed Jace looking. She slowly pushed herself up, her thin arms trembling. She crawled to the bars on shaky hands and knees, then stopped just inches from him. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, everything went quiet. Then she spoke, barely a whisper. "My body is the only currency I have," she said. "Please. Be gentle." Jace didn't move, didn't speak. He looked at Horelli looked. Not with hunger, not with power, but with something else. He saw the marks on her arms. The chain burns on her ankles, the way her fingers clutched the cage bars. Like she didn't even realize she was doing it. The trader noticed him staring and came over, laughing. "Beautiful, isn't she?" he said, slapping the cage, making her flinch. Caught her near the border. High caste girl. "You can tell by her glow. She's broken, but quiet," he added. "Some buyers like that." Jace's jaw tightened. "How much?" he asked, his voice low. "For one night." The trader grinned, showing sharp teeth. "No," Jace said. "For all of her." The trader blinked, then laughed harder. "Whole thing, huh? Not cheap, human." Jace pulled a pouch from his belt, tossing it on the table. It hit with a metallic clink credits, old but real. The trader's eyes lit up. "Deal," he said, opening the cage. The alien woman didn't move, just stared at Jace like she didn't understand. He reached out slowly, offering a hand. She looked at it, then at him, then at the hand again. Finally she took it, her touch cold and shaking. Jace helped her out of the cage. Placing his jacket around her shoulders, she stared at him with wide eyes, confused, scared, and silent as they turned to leave. The trader called out, "Hope you survived the night, human." He laughed. "She's got nothing left to lose." Jace didn't look back. He walked through the dusty marketplace, the alien woman beside him, her bare feet moving slowly across the sand. People stared. Some whispered, but Jace didn't care. He brought her to his transport ship, helped her inside, gave her water and food. She sat in the corner, knees to her chest, holding the cup with both hands. He didn't ask questions, didn't touch her, just sat nearby and cleaned his gear. Night fell outside, and the desert grew quiet. Inside the ship, the silence was heavy. She finally spoke, voice low and broken. "You didn't take what you paid for." Jace looked up and replied, "Because you're not for sale." And for the first time, her eyes began to shine, not with fear, but with something that almost looked like hope. The ship was silent, except for the soft hum of the generator. Jace sat on the floor, back against the wall, one eye half open as he pretended to sleep. The alien woman hadn't moved for hours, curled under his jacket like a shadow. She hadn't eaten much, just sipped water and held the cup like it was something sacred. Outside, the desert winds howled, dust scraping the ship's metal walls. Inside, the air was still and heavy, thick with unspoken thoughts. Jace had left the door to the sleeping area open on purpose. She could see him from where she lay, see that he wasn't trying to trap her, wasn't hovering or watching her like the traders did. But still, she didn't trust him. She had no reason to, in her world. Kindness came with a price, and gentle. Words always turned sharp in the end. Her hands trembled as she slowly sat up, the jacket slipping from her shoulders. She looked around the room plain, small, with a few supply crates and a weapon rack near the cockpit. No locks, no chains, no guards. She didn't understand it. Her bare feet touched the cold floor, and she moved like a ghost, silent and slow. She passed the water jug, ignored it, and instead picked up a long, sharp metal rod from the shelf near the emergency hatch. It wasn't much, but she had fought with less. She turned toward Jace, her grip tight, her breath shallow. He was still sitting with his head tilted, one arm resting across his lap, the other near his holstered pistol. He looked asleep, but she knew better. No scavenger survived in the wilds. By sleeping deeply, she stood over him, the rod in her hand raised slightly. Her lips parted, not to speak, but to breathe quietly. She stared at his neck. The soft skin between collar and chin, she could strike there. Quick and clean, run out, disappear, but her hand froze. Not because she was weak, not because she was afraid. It was because his eyes opened, slowly, calmly, without fear. He looked at her, just looked. His voice came out quiet, like a whisper in the dark. "If you're going to kill me, do it fast," he said. "But if you're scared, sit down and I'll show you I'm not your enemy." Her chest rose and fell, sharp and fast. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. Instead, she dropped the rod and it clattered loudly to the floor. She backed away, falling to her knees, shaking. He didn't move, didn't shout, didn't reach for his weapon. He just let her breathe, let her cry if she had to, let her exist. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, she spoke again, her voice raw. "What do you want from me?" Jace rubbed his face, sighed, and leaned back. "I want to fix my ship, leave this planet, and maybe sleep without sand in my boots," he said. Then paused. "And you?" "I want you to be safe. That's all." She stared at him like he was speaking another language. Safe was not a word she believed in anymore. She shook her head, eyes wet. "No one wants nothing." She said, "No one?" Jace nodded slowly, understanding. "Then let me show you I do," he said, "one day at a time." The generator hummed softly behind them as the night dragged on. She sat near him, not too close, but not far. The metal rods still on the floor between them. For the first time, she didn't feel like prey. She still didn't feel safe, but she felt something new, something confusing. She didn't sleep, but she stopped watching him like a threat. Jace closed his eyes again, fully this time. The rod stayed where it fell, untouched, and the woman who had been traded like cargo didn't run. Not tonight, asterisk. The sun rose behind a wall of orange dust, casting a red glow through the ship's narrow windows. Inside, Raleigh sat awake, her knees hugged to her chest, staring at the empty water cup in her hands. She hadn't slept, but she hadn't tried to run either. Jace was by the control panel now, tapping buttons, checking power levels. The engine was old and stubborn, coughing with every restart. They hadn't spoken since the night before. She still didn't trust him, not fully, but something had shifted. He hadn't touched her, hadn't demanded anything. Instead, he gave her space. And silence and food. That silence felt louder than chains, but somehow softer too. "Storm's coming," Jace muttered, looking out at the thick dust building. On the horizon, she didn't respond, just turned her head to look. He didn't expect an answer. By midday, the wind screamed harder than ever, shaking the ship. They were trapped inside, the desert outside, angry and wild. Jace sealed the doors, checked the vents, and handed Arali a blanket. She took it without a word. But this time she didn't flinch when his fingers brushed hers. Later, she finally spoke, her voice low and tired. "Why didn't you take what you paid for?" Jace sat across from her, sipping warm liquid from a cracked metal cup. He didn't answer right away. Then he set the cup down and said, "Because you're not something to take." She looked at him, confused. "That's not how this galaxy works," she said. "Maybe it shouldn't." He replied. She shook her head, almost laughing. "You think you're some kind of hero?" "No," he said. "Just someone who's tired of watching people hurt each other." The storm outside raged like a monster, but inside, things felt strangely calm. Arali pulled the blanket tighter and stared at Jace like he was a puzzle that didn't make sense. She hadn't met many humans, and none like this back on her homeworld. She had been a noble, high-born, a glowing daughter of the cast sun. But after the war, after her family's fall, she became a prize, not a person. Traded, sold, lost, forgotten, until now. "What's your name?" she asked suddenly. "Jace," he replied. "And yours?" She hesitated, then whispered Arali. He nodded once, respectful. No jokes, no comments, just acceptance. She didn't realize how rare that was. They sat in silence again, but it felt different now. Less cold, less full of fear, then a sharp beep broke the quiet. Jace stood quickly and moved to the console. He tapped a few buttons and frowned. "What is it?" Arali asked, standing slowly, her voice tense. "Someone's pinging the ship," he said. "A scout drone." Her heart dropped. "Hunters." "Could be," he said. "And if they're close enough to send drones, they're too close." She felt the cold rush back into her chest. Her hands gripped the blanket like it was armor. "Are they after you?" she asked. Jace looked at her and didn't lie. "No," he said. "They're after you." She turned away, her legs weak. "I should have known," she whispered. "There's always someone, always chasing." Jace moved closer, careful not to frighten her. "I didn't turn you in," he said. "I'm not going to." "Why?" she snapped, turning to face him. "You could get credits, a way off this sandball. Your record wiped clean." He stared into her glowing eyes and said softly, "Because you deserve to live free." She backed away, unsure if she should scream or cry or run. No one had ever said that to her before. Freedom had always been a lie dangled in front of her, only to be ripped away. Jace powered down the ship's beacon and dimmed the lights. They would have to move before nightfall. The drone would lead others, and time was short. As he packed gear and checked weapons, Arali stood frozen, her mind spinning. She wasn't sure if he was stupid, brave, or lying, but either way, he had made a choice, and for now, so had she, when he looked at her one last time before opening the emergency hatch. She nodded, not in thanks, not yet, but in something that looked very close to trust. The sun dipped low as the desert turned red and gold. The storm had passed, but the danger hadn't. Jace crouched near a cracked ridge of stone, staring through old binoculars toward the horizon. In the sky, a black dot buzzed faintly, a drone, spinning slowly above the sand like a vulture. It hadn't found them yet, but it was close, too close, behind him. Raleigh waited under the rock ledge, wrapped in his jacket, silent but alert. Her breathing was steady now, no longer the panicked gasps from the night before. She had begun to move differently, not as prey, but as someone who had tasted the idea of survival. And now she didn't want to lose it. Jace came back down and spoke. In a low voice, "They'll be here before sundown." She nodded, eyes sharp slavers. "Bounty hunters, maybe worse," he replied. "Depends who bought your name." She flinched, but didn't look away. She hated the name they hunted Raleigh of House Kale, lost heir, runaway jewel of the royal caste. Once a symbol of pride, now just a price tag. Jace checked his gear against 2 energy packs, 1 charged blaster, 1 short knife, and a grenade he hoped never to use. His ship couldn't outrun the hunters, not with the power cell half dead. They had only one choice, vanish or fight. "I know a place," Raleigh said quietly, surprising him. "A dried riverbed east of here. Caves along the side. My people used them once during raids." "You sure?" "Unless they sealed them, yes," she replied. "But it's 2 hours on foot." Jace stood, slung the bag over his shoulder, and held out his hand. "Then we go now." They moved quickly across the sand, boots and bare feet, leaving light prints behind. Raleigh's steps were careful, her balance smooth even in her weak state. Her body remembered how to move through desert lands. She was once a warrior's daughter, and some of that fire still lived in her, but they didn't get far. Halfway to the cliffs, a sharp sound cracked the air. Pop, pop. Like metal tapping stone, Jace threw her to the ground just as 3 hunter drones swooped overhead. Scanning, searching, one of them locked on and let out a loud screech. They had been marked. "Run!" Jace shouted, grabbing her arm. They sprinted for the nearest ridge as blaster fires scorched the sand behind them. The air smelled like heat and ash. Jace turned, fired 2 shots, 1 drone dropped, burning in the dirt. They reached the ridge and slipped behind a large stone wall where the path narrowed into a hidden crevice. Raleigh collapsed, coughing, her face streaked with dust and sweat. Jace pulled her up and kept moving. They didn't stop until the sun had fallen completely and the only light came from stars and the soft glow of Raleigh's skin. At last, the riverbed appeared before them. Dry and cracked, but exactly as she described. Caves opened like mouths in the stone wall ahead, dark and silent. They entered the 3rd one. Stepping deep into the shadows, the air inside was cool and smelled of stone and time. Jace set down the bag, lit a small portable lamp, and checked. Her 4 burns or injuries. She winced, but nothing serious. He finally sat down beside her, breathing hard. "We'll rest here," he said. "They'll search, but if we stay quiet, we'll be safe until morning." Raleigh leaned back against the rock. "Eyes closed, they won't stop," she said. "Not until I'm caught or dead. Then they'll fail." Jace replied simply. There was a pause. Then her voice came softer. "You knew there was a bounty on me before the storm, didn't you?" He didn't lie. "Yes, and you didn't turn me in." "No? Why?" He looked at her, then said quietly, "Because I saw your eyes." She opened them, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I didn't see a bounty." He said, "I saw someone who deserved a second chance." She blinked, slowly, as if that idea took effort to understand. "Second chances don't exist where I come from." Jace smiled faintly. "They do now." A silence fell between them. Not empty, but heavy with meaning. Raleigh reached down and touched the side of his hand. Just barely. Just for a second. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like property. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was protecting something truly sacred, and just beyond the entrance of the cave. Glowing red eyes appeared in the night. The hunters had not given up. The cave was cold, but safe for a little while. Jace placed motion sensors at the mouth of the entrance and tried to rest, but his ears stayed alert. Every sound, every shift of the wind made his hand hover near his weapon. Arali had fallen. Asleep at last, curled under the jacket, her breathing soft, steady, he watched her for a long moment. The glow of her skin faint like moonlight on water. He didn't know what she had suffered before they met. But he knew one thing: she didn't deserve to suffer again. When she stirred, he turned away and shut his eyes, giving her space. And that's when it happened. The motion sensor blinked once, then went black. No alarm, no sound, just silence. A silence that told him everything. He jumped to his feet, but it was too late. The cave filled with shadows, 3 figures in black armor, moving like ghosts. One of them lunged at Jace and slammed him against the rock. His blaster fell from his hand, skidding into the darkness. "Target confirmed," said a voice through. A mask, Jace's head spun, blood dripping from his temple. Arlie screamed. But one of the hunters hit her with a stun rod. Her body went limp instantly. Jace roared, broke free, and tackled the hunter, holding her, fists swinging wildly. He was strong, but not fast enough. Another rod jabbed into his side, sending waves of pain through his ribs. He dropped to his knees as Arali was lifted and carried out of the cave like cargo. Her glowing skin vanished into the night. Jace lay on the floor, gasping, muscles twitching. The hunters were gone within seconds, like ghosts melting into the sand. All that remained was the faint scent of ozone and the echo of her screams still ringing in his ears. He pulled himself upright, shaking, furious. He looked at the spot where she had slept, now empty. Cold, she had finally trusted someone, finally let her guard fall, and now she was gone. Not again, he thought. He wouldn't let the galaxy chew her up and spit her out. Not while he could still breathe. Jace grabbed his pack, slung it over his shoulder, and limped to the ridge. He found tracks of her prints and footprints heading west toward the old ruins. He knew that place. Old war station, now a slave exchange for off-world traders. No laws, no witnesses, just credits and cruelty. He tightened the straps on his gear, checked his remaining weapons: 1 knife, 1 blaster with 2 charges left. It wasn't much, but he wasn't going in to negotiate. By the time he reached the outskirts of the ruins, his legs burned and his blood still buzzed from the stun blast. The compound was surrounded by metal fences, guarded by mercenaries with lazy eyes and heavy guns. Inside, buyers laughed and drank, walking through rows of cages and chained prisoners. He scanned the area. There she was. In the center, under a spotlight, Arali stood chained to a post. Barely conscious, they had dressed her in some ceremonial cloth to increase her value, like wrapping a blade in silk. A tall auctioneer was announcing her lineage, her caste, her rare genes. The crowd watched like vultures waiting to feed. Jace felt something inside him snap. He wasn't a soldier, not anymore, but in this moment, he didn't need to be. He was human, and he was furious. He stepped forward without hesitation, eyes locked on the stage. One guard saw him too. Jace shoved the blade into his side and grabbed the man's rifle as he fell. Another guard turned, but Jace fired once to the chest, once to the shoulder. The auctioneer froze mid-sentence. The crowd scattered, screams rising like a storm. Jace marched through the panic, gun raised, ignoring everyone except her. Arali blinked slowly, barely able to focus when she saw him. Her lips moved his name, whispered like a prayer. He reached her and sliced the chains free, pulling her into his arms. "I told you I wouldn't let them have you," he said. She held on to him with the last of her strength. Her voice weak but steady. "I knew you'd come." Behind them, a final guard raised a weapon. But Arali moved first, grabbing Jace's pistol and firing it with perfect aim. The blast echoed through the compound, and the last threat dropped. To the ground, Jace stared at her, Surprised, she gave a tired smile. "Daughter of a warrior," she whispered. Then she collapsed against him. He held her tightly and walked out through the smoke and wreckage. No more cages, no more chains. Tonight, the hunted had become the free, and the human had become her sword. The compound burned behind them, red flames licking the sky as the smoke rose into the stars. Jace moved quickly, carrying Arali through the dark. Each step heavier than the last. She was breathing. But her skin was pale, her glow dimming. He had no medkit, no healer. Only a half-working ship and a heart that refused to give up. He brought her back to the hidden cave, laid her gently on the blanket, and tore open his last supply box. There was a nutrient pack, some water, and one injection of healing stimmed for himself if wounded. He hesitated only for a second before pressing it into her arm. Her body jerked slightly, then went still. He waited, breath tight in his chest. Seconds passed, then her eyes opened, unfocused but alive. "Jace," she whispered, barely louder than the wind. "I've got you," he said. "You're safe now." She closed her eyes again, not from fear, but to rest, this time. She knew someone would stay and watch over her. Later, as she slept, he sat at the cave's entrance, watching the stars. His comm device blinked. An incoming signal encrypted. Strong government grade. He opened the channel with a slow hand, not sure what to expect. Scavenger 3 Delta. A voice said, "We tracked your signal from the auction fire." Jace didn't respond. "We know what you did," the voice continued, "and who you rescued." He leaned forward, muscles tense. "She's under protection now," he said. "You come for her, you go through me." A pause. Then the voice replied, "We're not here to fight you," it said. "In fact, the king's court is offering a reward." Jace blinked, confused. "A reward?" "She's the last royal of House Kale," the voice said. "A valuable survivor. And a symbol, they want her back. They want her safe." The voice answered, "And they're prepared to offer you full immunity, transport, and enough credits to buy your own moon." He glanced back at Arali, still sleeping. Her breathing slow but stronger. She had told him her past was gone. Her people erased, her name a curse. Now the galaxy suddenly wanted to place her on a throne again, but at what cost? "She's not a symbol," Jace said. "She's a person. You'll be taken care of," the voice pressed. "Both of you safe, protected, and free." Jace asked. There was silence on the line. "We can't promise that," the voice admitted, "but she live." He ended the call without another word. He looked down at his hands, rough and scarred. He had fought for her, bled for her. Not for money or power, but because he saw her worth when no one else did. And now they wanted to buy that away. Arali woke before sunrise, her eyes meeting his in the pale light. "I heard part of it," she said softly. "They want to put me back in a golden cage." "You don't have to go," Jace replied. "If I don't, they'll keep hunting. Let them," he said. His voice steady. "We'll run, fight, disappear if we have to." She sat up slowly, the blanket sliding from her shoulders. Her voice shook, but her words didn't. "I don't want to be a queen again," she said. "I just want to live with someone who sees me, not my blood." Jace looked at her, and something deep inside him settled. "I don't want a reward," he said. "I just want to be the man who stood beside you." She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. "I gave everything once," she whispered. "My name, my body, my trust. This time," she said, leaning forward, "I choose who I give it to." She kissed him, slow and trembling, not from fear, but from something far braver. When they pulled apart, the world felt quieter. Even if danger still lurked beyond the cave, the galaxy was wide, cruel, and filled with powerful people. But Jace and Arali had chosen something stronger than fear. They chose each other, and together they would write a new path one no bounty could touch. The cave was behind them now, buried beneath layers of sand and memory. The sun was rising slow and golden as the human ship lifted from the desert floor. Its engines were weak, sputtering, but it flew inside. Jace sat in the pilot seat, one hand steady on the controls, the other resting gently over Aralis. She stood beside him, wrapped in the same jacket he gave her days ago. Though now she wore it with pride, not shame, her wounds had healed. But the marks on her heart would take longer. Still, her eyes were clear now, no longer hunted, no longer begging. They had left everything behind: bounties, cages, kings, and offers of golden chains. Now they moved through open sky. No destination, no promise, just freedom. As they passed through low orbit, an alert blinked on the console. Jace checked the scanner, expecting trouble. Instead, a new message came in it. Private signal. Encrypted but peaceful, he opened it, his voice cautious. "This is Jace." The screen blinked on, showing an old alien woman with silver skin and regal eyes. She wore robes of mourning, but her voice was strong. "A rally of House Kale," she said. "I speak for the remnants of your people." Arali stepped forward, her back straight. "I am no longer royalty," she said calmly. "No," the woman replied. "You are more than that now." There was a pause. Then the woman bowed her head. "You survived when all others fell," she said. "You walked through fire and did not turn bitter. You were never meant to rule from a throne, child," she added. "But perhaps you were meant to lead from the ground." Arali said nothing for a long time. Then, finally, she responded, "I will not be your queen." "Then what will you be?" the woman asked. Arali glanced at Jace, then looked back. "I'll be the voice that speaks for those who can't," she said. "The ones in cages. The ones forgotten. The ones with nothing but their body left." The woman on screen closed her eyes and nodded once. "Then may your path be clear. Daughter of Kale," she said. "The stars watch over you." The signal ended, and silence filled the cockpit. Jace looked at her with quiet pride. "You didn't need me to save you," he said. "No," she replied, stepping closer. "But I needed you to remind me I was worth saving." They drifted above the clouds. For a while, no words between them, only shared breath and open space. Eventually, she sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You gave up the reward," she whispered. "You gave me something better," he said. "Something no credit could buy." "What's that?" Her hand found his, fingers interlocking. "Do you still see me as broken?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "I see you as someone who survived when the galaxy tried to break her." She smiled, slow and full of peace. And then, as stars began to appear in the edge of the window, she whispered something that made his heart stop. "I want to stay with you," she said, "not because I must. Not because I'm afraid, but because I choose to." He turned to her, saw the fire in her eyes. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said. "My body was once a currency, a weapon, a cage. But now," she continued, touching his chest, "now it's mine, and I want you to have it. Not as payment, but as a gift." He kissed her, not with hunger, but with the deep, quiet love of someone who had waited a long time to feel alive again. When they parted, she rested her head against him, her voice warm. "You saved me, Jace." "No," he whispered. "You saved yourself. You saved yourself. I just refuse to let you forget who you were." Outside, the ship rose higher, leaving behind the world that tried to destroy them. Ahead, the stars waited, vast and endless, and between them, two souls once broken, now whole, together. They flew not as slave and buyer, not as hero and victim, but as equals, as something rare in the universe. as love born in fire, shaped by pain and chosen freely.